Hey everybody, welcome to Glow Up Handbook. Today I want to talk about 3 ways that you can get your middle splits in 2024. So if you like this video and are interested, stay tuned and keep watching, and be sure to like and subscribe for more. So first thing I want to talk about is active versus passive stretching. This is something you're going to hear me talk a ton about on the channel, and I want to go over what is it, how do you implement it, how much do you do it. There's so many factors involved in it, and something that's not talked about a whole bunch, but starting to be talked about more, which is awesome to see. So active stretching basically means that you're using muscular engagement and motion to get deeper into a stretch instead of gravity. Passive stretching, you're using gravity heavily to get deeper into a stretch. So forward fold, you're kind of hanging there, straddle, passively sitting. Again, these are phenomenal. I do a ton of passive stretching, but I do more active stretching. So some examples of active stretching would be leg swings, putting your front foot on a foam roller and sliding in and out for front splits, straddle push-ups, straddle deadlifts, things where you are using your muscles to get deeper into the stretch. So that is what active stretching is. And how do we implement it? How much do we do it? So implementing it, there's a few different ways you can do that. The first is you can do follow along flows that have more active stretching in them. So if you do anything on my channel, except for like some of the master classes, it's mostly active stretching. I do a lot of active stretching in all of my flows, and there's a lot of channels I like that do the same thing. So that would be the first tip. Follow people who do active stretching instead of simply just passive stretching. The second thing is to learn some active stretches that you like and incorporate it into your normal stretch routine, and then just slowly start to add it in. When I first started active stretching, like I had no idea what that meant or how to do it. And what I did is I just followed some people. I saw some moves I liked and I'd implement it. And when I was holding straddle, I would do 10 straddle push-ups. And then I'd go back to passive. And then I started to learn what my body liked, what was a fit for me, and I started to naturally crave that active stretching. How much to implement it, how to do it. Some tips I have is when you're working out, I would always start with active stretching and then passive at the end when your body's nice and warm. Passive stretching, you want to be a little bit warmer for than active stretching. Active stretching will get you warm for sure. I'm a huge fan of more active stretching than passive stretching. One, it'll get you more flexible. It gets into more muscles than simply doing a passive hold. It's also safer, especially as you become more advanced in your flexibility practice. Being too flexible for a long period of time can actually cause damage to your tendons and ligaments and all of that kind of stuff. There's been studies on that. And when you strengthen those muscles as you do in passive and active stretching, that can make the practice a lot safer. So I would implement at least 50% active stretching, always pre-workout, and then passive stretching post-workout, and a little less than 50% of the time. I do like passive stretching too, and that is way more relaxing. So definitely good to do. Second tip for middle splits is get comfortable in some key poses, the biggest one being frog. So frog is basically where your knees are to the side, your feet are in line with your knees, and you hold there. Your toes can also be together. I have a frog masterclass on the channel, so feel free to watch that if you want to know more about frog pose. Get comfortable in frog. Frog is the precursor to middle splits. It's essentially middle splits with your knees bent. So you can start in frog, start with a passive hold in frog, and then from there, as you get more comfortable, extend one leg and hold there. Extend the other leg and hold there. Start to go into middle splits and come back to frog. You can start to gradually work your way into frog pose and then gradually work your way into middle splits. So gauge how your frog pose is will tell you how close you are to middle split. If you're really high up in frog, you're not going to get a middle split because it's basically the same stretch. If you're down in your frog, really good time to try to get that middle split. You're close. Some other things, straddle. Straddle's a really good one. Some things I would do with straddle is slide back and forth. So tilt and tuck your tailbone in straddle. That will take you from like a middle split style stretch to a straddle stretch. You can also do a middle split with blocks. So putting blocks underneath your like pelvis area and your lower belly to heighten it will help you get into that middle split. So get comfortable in these key stretches before you move on to a middle split. Third thing is consistency and safety. So middle splits is a lot more difficult to get than any other stretch. My front split I got fairly easily. My middle split was really, really challenging. I was very sore. It takes a lot of active stretching and consistency. When I say consistency, I don't mean once a week for 2 hours. What I mean is you are constantly doing it daily. So 10 to 30 minutes a day is much better than 2 hours once a week. So be consistent with the practice. It's really hard to get a middle split. if you're not consistent. Even now, like my front splits, if I forget to stretch for a few days, I'm fine. But if I forget to stretch for a few days and I try my middles, I'm struggling like bad. So that kind of stretch requires a lot of consistency. So just make sure you're at a place where you're ready to give that and able to give that level of consistency to the middle split. I'm going to show you one of my flows coming up next that shows some of the things that I'm talking about. I'll also show some middle split stuff. So I will give you examples of this. As far as recommendations, I'd recommend you work towards middle splits 3 times a week. If you have my flows, you can do those or your own practice. But 3 times a week is about a good time to work middle splits, amount of time to work middle splits. And then the other days work stretching in other areas of your body. Your body's all linked. You don't want to stretch just one thing. Overdoing middle splits can be really, really hard on your body. You definitely don't want to overdo it. You can tear a muscle, tear a ligament, strain something, and you're going to be out of your middle splits practice for a really hot minute. So these are some of my top tips towards middle splits. I would just say that be kind to yourself. When you're trying to set a goal and be better, you don't want to go too aggressive and hurt yourself because you will get there. Even if you feel defeated or like you'll never get it, you're never too old. That's one of the biggest things I wanted to come across on this channel. I'm 31, still have my middle splits, no problem. Not that that's old, but a lot of us start to lose our flexibility getting into our 30s. So it's doable. It's doable no matter how old you are. I don't care if you're 18 or 65 or somewhere in the middle or somewhere lower or upper. You're gonna get your middle split if you stay consistent, are safe, and honor your body and its needs. Some other things to keep in mind are when you're training really intensely to eat enough protein and fiber and nutritious foods to support the training. BCAAs can also really, really help with recovery when you're doing this kind of stretching. Epsom salt baths were key for me when I was working towards my middle split because those inner thighs be sore. So these are my top tips. I hope you really liked it. I'm going to show you some of the stuff I was talking about that I have on my channel and my flows, just a little compilation in the next part of the video. And I'll link some of my follow along flows below. Please like and subscribe for more. Let me know what you want to see. All the follow along flow next week for you guys. And I love you. Thank you for being here. Bye. We're going to start in butterfly with your hands on your knees, taking twists side to side to warm up here. This feels good on your upper back, hips, inner thighs. Now go ahead and make a wide diamond and do waves with your spine up and down. When you get to the third wave, you're going to hold with your head reaching your toes. You want to think of folding from the hips, not the back. If you want a little bonus stretch here, you can clasp your hands behind your back for a little shoulder rinse. Now go ahead and take easy pose here, but you're going to bring your right foot in front of you to about the center of your chest and walk your hands forward. You can stay upright on your elbows or walk yourself all the way forward as I'm showing here. This will again start to warm up into your hip here. I would recommend doing something to warm up prior to this flow. Go ahead and switch sides, whether that's a hot bath or a workout or another yoga flow. And take the same option as before. You want to balance both sides. So either on your hands straight up, on your elbows, or walk yourself forward. And remember, none of these stretches are about how far you go. It's about good form and progress. You're going to extend your feet in front of you in a really narrow straddle, and you're going to run your hands up and down your legs, and as you do that, you're going to fold from your hips. On the third time, you're going to fold forward. Go ahead and rock side to side here, just getting into some different muscles, loosening up. Now go ahead and sit up, and you're going to make your straddle a little bit wider now. We're going to do the same thing. Hands up and down the legs, and you're going to fold from your hips. It's going to be a little bit more difficult this time folding from your hips and require some core strength to pull yourself back up. On that third time, go ahead and hold forward and just rock side to side. Again, just getting some different angles. And then when you're ready, go ahead and fold forward and hold the stretch. Again, if your spine is starting to round a lot, it's better to come up a little bit and have good form. Now take your widest straddle here. Just take one moment to get yourself comfortable, situated, And then what you're going to do is you're going to go side to side, running your hand down your left leg, then your right leg, your left leg, right leg, left leg. When you get to your left side now, you're going to come onto your elbows and just hold. Then go ahead and walk yourself to the right on your elbows on the right side. In just a moment, we're going to go side to side here. So walk your hands to the left, to the right, to the left, to the right, to the left, taking some active stretching, warming up, to the right, and then come to center, holding your deepest straddle with good form. If you want to get a little bit into the triceps as a little bonus, you can clasp your hands together and place them on your head. Then go ahead and sit straight up, hands back, shake your legs out a little bit, give yourself a hug. Then come onto all fours for just a second here. Arch your back, round, drop onto your elbows. And then what you're going to do is you're going to let your knees slide to the side. You're going to keep your toes towards each other. And you're going to come into a frog's pose here with your feet together. I'm staying on my elbows. You can stay on your hands or all the way down on your belly, as I now decided to do. Another way to get deeper into frog's pose is to tuck and tilt your tailbone. So if you find yourself like an inch from the floor, that's a really good option. Then you're going to widen your feet so your ankles are in lines with your knees. You can lift yourself to check as I did, and then I'm going to come down onto my belly, but the option to go onto your elbows or hands. Once you're ready, push up onto your hands. This is going to be a deeper version of frog, and you're going to make spinal waves. So down, up, down, up, down onto your elbows, and you're going to extend one leg into a half middle split, half frog. This will definitely feel deeper. Now switch sides. Perfect. Push yourself out of that. Just take a moment to rest on your belly before pushing back up here into a quick child's pose. Now come on to seated. Give yourself a quick hug here, neutralizing everything after all that stretching. Shake your feet side to side. Then we're going to come back into those straddles. So really narrow straddle, slide your hands forward, take your deepest hold, toes pointed. Now widen it a little bit more, slide forward, deepest hold in this straddle, toes pointed. Now your deepest straddle, walk yourself forward or slide yourself forward and take your deepest straddle hold here. Again, toes pointed. Now you're going to come onto your elbows, and you're going to roll forward slightly until you come into a full middle split here. You can stay up on your elbows, go all the way down. Don't worry if you do get fully into your middle split. Keep practicing and you will get there. Try to breathe. Something that helps me when I'm doing really deep stretches, never push past to the point of pain, but if you're uncomfortable, count your breaths. Go ahead and bring your feet together in that frog pose. So the 4 count is what helps me. 4 counts in, hold for 4 counts, out for 4 counts, and hold for 4 counts. Box breathing. Now from your frog's pose, try and extend your legs back into a middle split. That's not in your practice, no problem. Just hold your frog and go onto your hands. Now if you did the middle split, go back into frog with your feet together. Breathing. And slide into that middle split one more time. You can see this was a little bit difficult for me the second time. It's a pretty deep stretch. Just in your middle split, roll forward and back a couple times, just changing the angle and the stretch in your hips and inner thighs. Before pushing yourself back up, legs together, you may need to help it out with your hands. Give yourself that hug. You're doing great. So go ahead and roll into your back here. We're going to come into a funky little stretch. Your feet are going to be slightly wide planted on your mat. You're going to drop your knees to one side. The foot in the back, you're going to, if you can, bring your heel towards your glute for a deeper quad stretch and extend the opposite leg. So I'm showing it on screen here. The extension of the leg is optional. If you chose that variation, bring your foot back in, feet to center. You can bring your knees together for a second to neutralize your lower back. Now drop your feet to the other side. You can see it better here. I'm tucking my heel into my glute and extending my opposite leg. This feels a little weird too at first. Just keep practicing it. It's a little bit of a funky one, but I find it gets really deep into my inner thighs and my quad, and you also get like the feel-good benefit of the twist, especially if you've been training your core. Bring your feet back to center and drop your knees together. And roll yourself back up here. Round your spine out with your feet planted. Arch, round. Take a circle in one direction, then the other direction. Then what we're going to do is roll forward into your wide leg forward fold on your elbows or your hands. Rock backward and forward a couple times. Just getting comfortable here. Then we're going to slide into our middle splits. This one is still weird for me. This is probably the most recent stretch I was able to acquire. So no problem if you can't get there. If you can't get all the way down, no problem at all. Just hold yourself up on your hands or your elbows. It is harder when you don't have it fully to the ground because you have to hold yourself up and gravity's working against you. So just know it actually gets easier when you get into your middle splits. We're going to start by taking deep breaths, and today we're going to focus on our transition from straddle to middle splits. That transition can be a tricky one, so we're going to do some stretches together that help with that transition. I'd recommend warming up a little bit before this flow. So you're going to start in easy pose, and I want you to bring your left foot forward to about the center of your chest. You can walk till you're on your hands, your elbows are all the way folded forward. I want you to think of keeping as flat of a back as you possibly can in this exercise. And then go ahead and take an easy twist to both sides here. Then switch sides. Again, so you're going to bring that right foot forward now to about the center of your chest. And then you can come down onto your hands, your elbows, or all the way down to the ground. This flow is definitely going to be a little bit challenging just because the nature of getting into middle splits from straddle is a challenging and advanced asana. Feel free to do this at any level. Just modify, and I'll continue to provide those modifications. Take a quick twist. Awesome. So what I want you to do next is come into a very narrow straddle. So kind of to the edges of your mat. You can rub your legs, grab one foot, then the other. You can also take a strap around each of your feet if you can't quite reach them yet, just to flex, get into the calves a little bit. Then grabbing your feet with your hands or the strap, you're going to bend and extend your elbows. So extend, bend, extend, bend, extend, bend. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale. Then go ahead and walk forward. Now you're going to plant your hands on the ground. And you're going to do the same thing. So extend, bend, extend, bend, extend, bend, extend, bend, extend, bend. When you bend, it doesn't have to be all the way to the ground. It can just be a slight bend. We're going to see that a lot in today's flow. So go ahead and come to your deepest point here. That can be your hands, your elbows, or all the way down. Just rock side to side a little bit. Just shifting. There'll be a lot of active stretching in today's flow. A few passive holds, but a lot more moving within the stretches. Awesome job. So now I want you to take your straddle a little bit wider, not as wide as it goes though. Hands on the mat. You're going to bend and extend your elbows. Again, doesn't have to be all the way to the ground. Extend, bend, extend, bend, extend, bend, extend, bend, extend, bend. Inhale. Now widen your hands and you're going to dip your chest from one side to the other. So left to right, 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 back to center. Go ahead and walk your hands out. You can come onto your elbows or your hands or your chest. I'm on my elbows here, but walking my hands pretty far out, keeping a very flat back. Breathe. Now walk your hands back in. And we're going to do some push-ups here. So you're just going to push your hands to the ground with push-up and pull yourself up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. This can just be a little bend of the elbows, down, and hold. Hold in your deepest point of the straddle now. I want you to focus on your breaths here. So inhale, really feel that inhale, and then exhale. Focusing on your breathing is key to stretching. You'd be surprised how much it helps you get deeper in these postures and not focus so much on the discomfort you're feeling. Today there will be some discomfort, but you don't want pain. So if you feel pain, that's where you kind of back off. So you're going to grab the two blocks here that you saw on screen. I want you to grab one of them and you're going to place it under your left foot, and then you're going to bend and extend your elbows again. So you're going to bend, extend, bend, extend, bend, extend, bend, extend, bend, extend, bend, extend, bend, hold. So you're going to come to like a place of moderation here. So kind of deep, but not as far as you can go. And I want you to shift your hips back and forth slightly here. So you're not just holding it, you're working on shifting your hips back and shifting them forward. Continue that shifting of the hips. Get used to what it feels like to make that transition, pulling your hips back and forward. Then now you're going to deepen the pose. You can go down to your belly if that's in your practice, and you're just going to hold it here. Awesome. So we're going to come into a cat-cow. So on your elbows, arch, then push up onto your hands and round. Elbows arch, push into hands and round. Elbows arch, push into your 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 hands and round. Then come into your deepest straddle. Focusing on your breathing. If you're struggling to focus on the breath, work on counting your breaths so you can count your breathing in for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and hold for 4. Awesome. So now we're going to do the same thing, but this time with the block on the other side of your straddle. hairs on my face. So plant your hands on the mat. You're going to bend the elbows, extend, bend, 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 and then hold kind of that moderate place in the straddle stretch. Breathe here. Now shift your hips forward and back. It's going to be small. Shifting forward and back, back, forward. You can see here on screen, it doesn't look like I'm doing much, but you'll feel the difference. You can really feel it kind of in your groin. Now come into your deepest straddle here and just hold and breathe. Push into your hands, and we're going to do cat-cow. So elbows arch, push into the hands and round. Elbows arch, push into your hands and round. Elbows arch, push into your hands and round. Elbows arch, push into the hands and round. Elbows arch, push into the hands and round. Elbows arch, push into the hands and round. Elbows arch, hands and round. Elbows arch, hands and round. And deepest stretch. Hold here. After this, we have one more round of straddles, and then we're going to move on to something else. So if you're getting a little antsy in straddle, just hang in there. We're going to grab the other block now and place it under your left foot. So now both of your feet are on blocks, and we're going to repeat that sequence that we just did. Before we do that, we're just going to shift back and forth here, getting our bodies comfortable in this pose. Sometimes with both blocks, it can feel more intense. Reach your right hand over your head for a quick side stretch, then your left hand. Plant your hands, bend, extend, bend, extend, bend, extend, bend, extend, bend, extend, bend, extend, bend, and hold. Again, a moderate place here, and you're shifting your hips back and forth. Just a teeny bit. Beautiful job. Stay with me. Now go ahead and come into your deepest straddle here. It's definitely going to feel more intense with the blocks. The good news is when you start stretching with blocks, and we're going to do frog pose with blocks in a second, when you move the blocks, it feels so much easier. Now cat-cow, so push into your hands and round. Elbows arch, 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 hands and round. Beautiful. So walk yourself in. You can use your hands to pull yourself back into a seated position. It'll be a little bit tight. Go ahead and twist to one side, then the other. Go ahead and move the blocks out of the way. Come onto all fours here. I'm going to go ahead and double up my mat and move the direction of it, just so I'm a little bit more of a comfortable position when I go into frog. So what I want you to do is slide into frog pose. So what you're seeing here is my knees are in line with my hips, and my feet are in line with my knees, and my feet are flexed to protect my knees. So another thing I'm doing here is I'm trying not to let my belly drop too much. It's a little bit arched here, but even now that I'm going to be pushing back, you see that I lifted my belly off the ground. So what I want you to do is go into your elbows or your hands and scoot forward and back. Your hands are going to be harder. So back, forward, back, forward, back, forward. This will be uncomfortable. Back, hold. Now I want you to little pulses back. So go to your deep point and then pulse just a teeny little bit. now what you're going to do is tuck and tilt your tailbone. So this will feel weird, I acknowledge it, but it helps, trust me. Tilt your tailbone and then tuck it under. This will be really helpful when getting to straddle to middles. So you're going to tuck and tilt your tailbone in frog. The tuck is going to feel very intense. So you're going to come out of that for a second. You're going to grab your block and put it under your left knee. You can watch me get into it here. I know it's a little bit tricky at first. Before you do that, I'm just kind of making some circles with my hips. You can do whatever's comfortable for you. I usually need something in between frog stretches just because it is a pretty intense stretch. Awesome. So on your elbows, your hands seems easier, but it's going to be more intense, but feel free to experiment with that. Just hold for a second, get your body used to the stretch before we come into some active stretching. I'm just going onto my hands to make sure everything is in alignment. So again, hips with knees, ankles with knees, and feet flexed. So you're going to go back, forward, back, forward, back, forward, back, forward, back, forward, back, pulse back, pulse, 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 pulse. Then drop down, and you're going to tuck and tilt your tailbone. So tilt, tuck, tilt, tuck. Just trust me on this one. Tilt, tuck, tilt, tuck, tilt, tuck. Again, these are super subtle movements. You can tell on screen I'm not doing a lot, but you'll feel it. And push on your hands if it's in your practice. This will definitely deepen the stretch. Then come on out of that. And what we're going to do is just move the block to the opposite side here. Whatever we do on one side, we want to do on the other. So I'm just sliding in, getting in everything aligned, checking it out, making sure everything looks good. And then just kind of getting my body used to the stretch here before we move into the active portion. Then I'm going to go back, forward, back, forward, back, forward, back, forward, back, forward, back, back, pulse, 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 pulse. You got this. Pulse, 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 and drop down. And now tilt and tuck. So in just a moment here, you're going to see me tilt my tailbone and tuck, tilt, tuck, tilt, tuck, tilt, tuck, tilt, tuck, tilt, tuck. Push onto your hands if that's in your practice. If you did it on the other side, make sure to do it on this side. You want to have balanced flexibility on both sides for optimal, not only optimal flexibility, but optimal health. Now you're going to do your knees on both of the blocks. This can be hard to get into. I like to put one knee on the block, lift myself up a little bit, and then gauge where the other knee is, and then slide it in. So what you're going to do now is same thing. Elbows, you're going to go back, forward, back, forward, back, forward, back, forward, back, forward, back, pulse, 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 pulse. Then drop yourself down, and we're going to tilt and tuck here. This is going to be rough. It's tough. It's a tough one, but you got it. So you're going to tilt, tuck, tilt, tuck, tilt, tuck. Then push onto your hands. And get yourself out of that. Woo! Great job. I feel that too. You can move your blocks to the side. I'm just taking a twist here. Do whatever feels good. This is just your moment to shake it out a little. I'm going on all fours and just making a circle to one side then the other. Then you're going to come back into frog with no blocks. This is going to feel a lot easier this time around. I feel so much more comfortable here right now. And then bring your feet together and then out back in the alignment. Together, aligned, and then together and hold. That just helps us work on moving within these type of stretches. So feet are together now, different variation of frog. I find this to be a little easier, but some people find this to be harder. So play with it. And pick the harder one. And push into your hands and take a twist to one side. Then the other. And slide out of that. Great job. It's not easy, so awesome job. And if you're still with me, we only have like 3 minutes left, so hang in there. Now we're going to start playing with what we've been working towards this whole time, which is straddle to middles. Most of learning tricks and more advanced asanas is the warm-up than the actual stretch. I can't just like slide into this on a random day. So go into your deepest straddle possible. As far as it goes, I want you to just tuck and tilt your tailbone just like we did in that frog. So you see me here tilting and tucking, and you see when I tuck how I'm kind of starting to slide into the middle splits here. Not fully, but that's the movement you're looking for. Hold at the tilt and then drop onto your elbows. Same thing, tilt, tuck. If you can start getting in the middles, feel free. But you see how when I tuck, again, it's just like the roll into the middles. It's so close. So this is how you start to feel more comfortable fully rolling into the middle splits, which we're going to do in just a second here if it's in your practice. If it's not, I want you to keep working on the tilt and tuck. Now I'm going to drop down and you see me go fully into middles, and then I'm going to tilt and tuck. So when I tilt my hips, I'm in middle this time, and when I tuck, I'm kind of in almost a really wide straddle. So really wide straddle, middles. So shifting your hips is the key with middle splits, from straddle to middle splits. It's in the hips. And obviously a lot of flexibility is required. So you may have to hold yourself up, but working with the blocks like I did and focusing on active stretching will get you there. If you can have your middle splits, then go ahead and hold that. If you don't, I want you to hold your widest straddle. You can kind of pancake out your arms here. Try to relax in it, even though it's uncomfortable. Find an almost meditative state. Come into your widest straddle, hands behind you in a back bend. And bring your legs together. You can use your hands to help because, whew, that was a tough stretch. I'm a little sore. Come into easy pose here, hands on your knees, and just make some circles. I'm doing 3 circles each side. So follow along with me for that. So we're going to start in easy pose here, doing some spinal circles in both directions. You can rub your thighs, switch your feet out. Now what I want you to do is bring one foot forward, foot flexed. So it's going to be about to the center of your chest where your heart is, and start to walk your hands forward. So the more flexible you are, the further forward you can go. I started on my hands, now I'm dropping to my elbows. And if you are a little bit more advanced, you can drop all the way down so your head is resting on the floor. I will be showing the beginner to intermediate variations throughout this flow, but I'll provide the more advanced options. Now you're going to switch sides. So you're going to bring the opposite foot forward, foot flexed to about the center of your chest, starting with your hands on the ground. You can drop to your elbows. This is good for getting that outer hip. I really like this stretch anytime I'm about to stretch my middle splits. Awesome. So come into a butterfly pose. You're going to bring your feet out a little bit, so a wide diamond. You're just going to bend and straighten your elbows. Bend, straighten, bend, straighten, bend, straighten, bend, hold. You want to thinking of your neck as an extension of your spine. So see, I'm not like arching my neck forward a lot. Now bring your feet in really close as you can to you. Shift side to side. You can make some more waving motions. Rub your thighs a little bit. Now twist to one direction. Twist to the other. This stretch always feels super good to me. Bring your feet. So you're going to come into a double pigeon. You're going to bring one foot to the opposite knee and then stack the knee on top of the other foot. So when you're in the full posture, your knee and feet will be perfectly connected. But if you're a little bit further away, you'll notice your knee will lift a little bit, and that's perfectly okay. Now go ahead and switch sides. So I'm showing again the intermediate variation where you see my knee is a little bit lifted. If you're more flexible, you can start to walk your hands forward. If you're less flexible, that knee will be higher. So bring your feet in front of you, Moving the flesh from your sit bones, feet flexed, rub your thighs here, point and flex your feet. Flex, point, flex, point, flex, point, flex, point. Do some ankle circles on the right side, then the left. Switching directions. Now grab onto your calves and bend and straighten the elbows. So your toes pointed is going to be easier than toes flexed. So straighten, bend, straighten, bend. Now hold. I want you to push yourself, but maybe like a level 6, so not fully here. Just kind of letting your muscles loosen up a bit. Now come into a V shape. So you're not coming into a full straddle. Move your rib cage side to side, rub your thighs. Now, what you want to do is plant your hands on the floor and bend and straighten your elbows. Like a little mini push-up. Straighten, bend, straighten, bend, straighten, bend. Now hold. If you can, plant your elbows on the floor, do that. Otherwise, your hands will be straight. So you're going to straighten and now plant your elbows. Straighten, elbows down, straighten, elbows down, and hold. Breathing here. Any holds, the breath is going to be a really, really powerful tool for you. So come into a wide straddle here. Side to side, moving your rib cage around. Take a deep breath. Get rooted and connected to your body here. Now plant your hands on the earth and you're going to do those mini push-ups. Bend, straighten, bend, straighten, bend, straighten, bend, straighten, bend, straighten. And walk your hands further forward. You're going to bend and straighten, but this time planting your elbows. So bend, straighten, bend, straighten, bend, and hold. So hold if you can with your elbows on the earth. If you're more flexible, you can bring your belly to the earth. Now bring it back. Swing your feet behind you. And we're going to come into a frog's pose here, but with your feet towards each other. So you want your knees in line with your hips, your toes connected, and I'm going to be on my elbows here. You can come onto your stomach or onto your hands. Being on your hands is going to be the hardest variation because that will be pressing your hips towards the earth more. If you're more advanced, your hips will be fully on the earth. If you're more of a beginner, your hips will be higher. No problem either way. This is one of the best stretches for middle splits. So go ahead and bring yourself forward and back a bit like I'm showing in the video. This will just hit some different angles. You can hold back. Now, if you were on your elbows, you can come all the way down to your belly. Try to relax. Frog pose is extremely difficult, but it's a really powerful stretch. The more you do it, the easier it does get. This used to be one of my least favorites, and now I can't say it's one of my favorites, but it is a pose I can find a lot of relaxation in. So I'm coming back onto my elbows here. What I'm going to do is separate my feet. So you want your ankles to be in line with your knees, feet flexed, knees in line with hips still, and just holding. Again, the same variations. You can be on your elbows, your belly, or your hands being the hardest. So if you are more beginner, your hips are going to be higher, which I just showed on screen. If you're more advanced, your hips will be closer to the earth. No matter where you're at, you want to bring your hips forward and backward. Forward and back, switching the angles up a bit here. Forward, back, forward, back, forward, back. Now hold, and you're going to bring your belly to the earth. So settle in, breathe, relax. You're doing great. Getting middle splits is not easy. Make sure you're taking lots of recovery time for yourself. So hot baths, massage chairs if you have access to one. My gym has one, so I'm super lucky. Passive stretching, massage guns. So bring onto all fours. You can bring your hips forward and back, side to side, just loosening up here before swinging your feet back forward, feet in front of you, and we're going to repeat that. So forward fold, this time I'm flexing my feet, so we're going to take a little bit more advanced variations here this time. Forward fold. Now, lighter straddle, kind of a pizza shape. I'm going straight to my elbows. Again, the options would be belly or hands. Your widest straddle, elbows, belly or hands. So bring your hands to the earth, and we're going to do those push-ups a little bit here, but when you bring yourself down, you want to roll forward into your middle splits. So your hips are going to lift a little bit off the earth, and that's okay. So rolling forward, up, forward, up, forward, up. Rolling into your middles is one of the easiest way to get there. Forward, up, forward, up. Your knees will be facing up in straddle, then they'll roll forward slightly as you go into your middle splits. Perfect. So now this next time that you come down, I want you to hold your middle splits. Now again, you don't need to be all the way to the earth. You can be holding yourself up so your hips are lifted. Doesn't matter how high up you are. It's not about that. I'll be honest, it's way harder when you don't have your middle splits. This may look crazy to you now, but you don't have to hold up your body weight. I will show that variation later, and it is exhausting. So swing your feet back forward, shake them out, give yourself a hug. Being kind to yourself here, erasing any thoughts that you had that were maybe a little bit self-deprecating before we come back into a wide straddle. So we're going to do the same thing. Down, roll forward, up. 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 Down, roll forward, and hold. Another middle split hold. You can do this. You can come onto your elbows here, or your belly, or you can hold yourself up. You can use your hands to help bring your feet together. Sometimes they get a little stuck when you're doing a lot of middle splits work. Now bring yourself into a narrow knee child's pose. Your hands are going to be behind you, just resting your forehead on the earth. Let your body fully sink into the ground before you come into a standing wide leg forward fold. So your hands are going to be on the earth in front of you. Just holding for a second. Can bring, so a gentle twist here, bring one hand to your low back, twisting slightly, then bring your other hand to your low back, Now I want you to bend and straighten your elbows. Bend, straighten, and then start to roll down into your middle split. So just let your feet slide out. I'm showing you the variation here where I'm holding myself up. You can see it's taking some upper body strength to get myself to do that. So like I said, it's actually easier the further you get than harder. Here's the straight arm variation of holding myself up. Go ahead and drop down, swing your legs back, go into all fours, and back into a wide leg forward fold. Now you're going to drop and lift your hips. So hands are planted, drop your hips, lift, drop, lift, drop, lift. Really good mobility exercise here. Lift, drop, lift, drop, lift, drop, lift, drop, lift, drop, lift, drop. You can also bring your hands on some blocks here to lift the floor. Then slide down into your middles. So I'm holding myself up here with the straight arms, which this was easier. I don't know why I did the bent elbow before, but this is the variation I would try. But the bent elbow is another one. Belly to earth, feet behind you, all fours. Back to the wide leg forward fold, but you're going to bring your foot to the edges of the mat now. Your feet to the edges of the mat. So a little bit narrower. Lift, drop, lift, drop, lift, drop. Just changing the angle a bit. Drop, lift, drop, lift, drop, lift, drop, lift. Just swing your hips side to side here. And one last slide out. So I dropped my elbows before sliding out this time. So this is kind of an elbows planted variation where you can hold yourself up. And then I did slide fully down into middle splits. So there's 3 ways to hold yourself up in middle splits if you're not all the way there. You can plant your hands and have your elbows bent, plant your hands and have your elbows straight. You can also plant your full forearms on the ground and hold yourself there. Bring yourself into a wide-kneed child's pose. Hands in front of you, then bend your elbows towards your head. Gentle tricep stretch. Then lift one arm and slide it under for a little twist, pushing into the opposite hand. You can also bend the hand that's in the twist and just kind of massage your shoulder. Switch sides. Sliding through. Massage. I'm trying to get a pull-up right now, and it's really hard, and so I'm like sore there all the time. So if you're like me, something to try. We're going to start with some hip circles, some active stretching. You're just going to make circles with your leg going out, and then switch directions. Doing that for 30 seconds. Beautiful. Now switch sides. Go making circles out. Then switch directions. Do you guys like the middle splits flows? Let me know in the comments. Today's will be a little bit more passive, but definitely some active stretching as what's common with my flows. So to get started, we're going to start nice and easy. We're going to start in a wide leg child's pose. I'm taking a variation where I have my feet a little bit outside of my thighs. That helps me get a little bit deeper. Optional. If that doesn't feel good on your knees, please don't do it. This flow, I'm a little bit tighter than usual because I did go for a run. I have not been really consistent with my split stretching, if I'm being honest, so I'm feeling this one with you guys. So now drop into a frog pose, but the difference we're going to do here is we're going to keep our feet and toes together. So we're just going to hold on our elbows here in a frog, but a narrow frog. You can pulse back and forth a little bit if you'd like, just changing the angle. Then what I want you to do is separate the feet so they're in line with the knees, feet flex, and we're going to come into a full frog for 1 minute. On my elbows here, you see me looking back just to make sure everything's in line. Sometimes it is hard when you're in frog to know if your alignment is correct. So if that's the case, just push up onto your hands and look back, and that always helps me. You can do some little pulses back and forward. You see me looking back for form. This is what I was talking about earlier. If you want to get a little deeper, press up onto your hands. I know it seems like lying down would be the deepest, but when you're on your hands, it pushes your hips towards the mat more, so it's a little bit of a deeper stretch. Beautiful. Come on out of that. I'm going to turn to face you now, and we're going to drop into a side lunge. So any side is good. We're going to do both sides. First, I just want you to hold it. Your hips may be a little bit more lifted than mine, or you may be more comfortable than I am, but no matter where you are, I just want you to hold. We'll do 30 seconds passive hold, 30 seconds where I'm going to give you an active flexibility exercise. So now I want you to bend and extend your elbows. Bend, extend, 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 bend, and hold. Beautiful. Now switch sides, starting with our passive hold here in the side lunge, opening up that inner thigh. Just chilling here. Even though you see blocks, you don't need blocks for this flow unless you want to use them to modify. I filmed a back bending flow that will be on the channel Saturday, and that's where I use the blocks for. Now bend, extend, 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 bend, hold. Now we're just going to switch sides. So keep your hands on the mat and just switch side to side. Some active stretching here, getting into the inner thighs and hips. We're doing this for 30 seconds. So you're just going to go side to side. You can go faster than me. You can go slower than me. I want you to challenge yourself, but I don't want you to move so fast that your form is not correct. Now just drop into a quick forward fold here. We're just going to hold this for 30 seconds. A little bit more of a passive forward fold, so don't feel the need to go as deep as possible. This is just to loosen up the hamstrings a little bit, but giving your body a little bit of a break before we go into some more intense stretching. Perfect. Come on out of that, drop to your mat. We're going to go into a frog pose, so you have options here. You can either stay in frog, which is perfectly fine and great, or you can extend one leg in a half frog, half middle split. This is definitely advanced, so please stay in frog. If you're not decently comfortable in frog, because who's like fully comfortable in frog, but if you're not decently comfortable, I would stick with frog until that's a little bit more natural. And you're going to see when I switch sides, I'm struggling to get into it a little bit. So go ahead and switch sides. I'm just going to move the blocks out of the way so I can kind of walk that foot forward. That one was a little bit harder. It's very natural for one side to feel easier than the other. The key there, though, is you don't want to stretch one side deeper. So if your right side is easier, you don't want to go all the way to a half middle split on your right side and then your left side not do it, because you're going to create a more deep imbalance. It's better to pull back on the flexible side to let that other side catch up. Perfect. Come on out of that. We're going to come into a very narrow straddle here. So just very narrow straddle. I just want you to fold forward, opening the hamstrings, not quite the inner thighs yet. You can keep your toes pointed or flex and open here. You can go ahead and go all the way down to the mat if that's in your practice. We're in the last few minutes here. It's going to be our last round of stretches, so I don't want you to give up. Focus on your breath and stick with me. We're going to end with a 1-minute middle split hold. Beautiful. Now extend into a wider straddle. Drop into your elbows. That was my dog's hair in my mouth. This is kind of his room. It was meant to be my hobby room. And I do film in here, but basically it's his room now. I have a Great Pyrenees. If you guys have dogs, leave them in the comments because I love dogs. Beautiful. Come all the way down if you can. I'm with you here. I was trying to make it look easier than I felt, but I was definitely struggling in today's stretch. I've been doing more running and less stretching, and so definitely a little tighter than I typically feel. And I'm losing my voice, if you're wondering why I sound so funny. Perfect. Now I want you to come into your widest straddle you can. I'm not quite coming into my middle split yet, but I'm going to. We're going to do 2 minutes here. 1 minute in the wide straddle, 1 minute in the middle split, but feel free to go straight into a middle split. I'm starting on my elbows for 30 seconds, and then I'm going to go onto my belly. Especially with middle splits, I like to ease my way in. You want to push your body, but not so hard that you're risking injury. So I'm coming down onto my belly. Perfect. Now, if you want and you're ready to come into a full middle split, so you saw here, all I did was roll my hips forward slightly, and that put me into a full middle split. So I'm starting on my elbows. I get antsy with the long hold. So if you see me wiggling and looking around, it's because I'm really trying not to leave the stretch. Come on all the way down to your belly. If that's in your practice, you can bend your arms for a little bit of a gentle tricep stretch. We have 30 seconds to go in this stretch. You've got it. Push yourself, but in a careful, safe way. As we wrap up this, I want to thank you guys so much for flowing with me. It means a lot. If there's any flow requests, please let me know, and be sure to like and subscribe for more flows like this. On Saturday, I'm going to have a really fun, deep back bending practice. You can come on out of that, take a seat, take a deep breath. That's all.